Welcome to the Today's Leader podcast. Building tomorrow's best leaders, today.
Way to go, guys. Way to go. Keep it going. Good job, guys. All right, Paul, I see you. All right, John, finish on. Good call.
Great job, guys.
Hey there, it's Coach Curl here, and welcome to episode 390 of the Today's Leader podcast, Leading a Revolution, Building Tomorrow's Best Leaders Today. This is a special bonus episode just for you. It's my pleasure to introduce you to Robert Jordan and Olivia Wagner. Now, Olivia and Robert are co-founders of a company called InterumExecs in the United States. They're a leadership executive matching firm that helps some of the global giants like Pepsi and Microsoft match them with the right executive for the right time. So they might be going through a crisis, they might be going through some stagnation. They identify the right leaders to step in during the times of trouble or stagnation. They've just released a book this week. The book is called Right Leader, Right Time. Discover your leadership style for a winning career. And we're pleased to be able to share this with you the week of release. The book is truly an executive reader's one-stop guide to assessing your distinct leadership style with a step-by-step plan for optimizing that style to best suit your business and scale its growth. Now, how they came about this book was by conducting interviews with thousands of executives. And through that, they've identified 4 distinct leadership styles and when and where these leadership styles are best utilized. Now, they've formulated this FABS framework, they call it: fixer, artist, builder, and strategist. So please stay tuned to find out more about this leadership framework and maybe discover the style that you are as a leader. So after a word from our sponsor, of course, it's my pleasure to introduce you to Olivia and Robert.
The podcast is brought to you by Think and Grow Business, the home of the Think and Grow Business Mastermind. If you're serious about growing your business, get serious and join a mastermind group today. Find out more at thinkandgrowbusiness.com.au.
And it's my pleasure to welcome to the Today's Leader podcast, Building Tomorrow's Best Leaders Today. Please welcome co-founders and head of leadership at InterumExecs and co-authors of The Right Leader, Right Time, Discover Your Leadership Style for a Winning Career. Please welcome Robert Jordan and Olivia Wagner. How are we?
We're doing great. Thanks for having us.
Excellent.
Thanks for hosting us.
It's awesome having you on deck today. So it's I've read some of the bullet points, some of the briefings, some of the summaries around your book, and I'm really sure it's going to hit a real chord with the leaders that listen to our podcast, especially those leaders that are looking for career success and looking to, maybe shift and change some company progress or success along the way. So first up, let's just share a little bit about, I suppose, the team and what you do at InterumExecs, and then what brought about the collaboration for the book.
Sounds good. Yeah, we spent the last 10 plus years building kind of a go-to team of executives around the globe. And those execs specialize in interim project-based fractional roles where they can kind of parachute in at a moment's notice. So we're often getting calls from companies going through periods of change. They don't have the internal resources, or they really are just trying to accomplish something that they haven't yet done. So whether that's putting operational efficiencies in place, prepping for sale, there's a lot of use cases. But in kind of building our team of execs, it gave us this front row seat to seeing what really separated the rock stars from the rest. And, resume is one thing. You can see someone's track record, but it really kept coming down to mindset and the leaders that we saw were at the top of their game, were wired for action. They knew their strengths. They were really selective about what they took on. And I think they tuned into the type of opportunities that were best fit for them. So, we took those patterns, and that's what ultimately laid out this framework for what we call FABS leadership. Yeah. Fixer, artist, builder, strategist, which is what we dive into in the new book, Right Leader, Right Time.
And when I'm looking at those 4 categories during my career, I can see at various times people that have fulfilled those roles or gone into, I was in retail, gone into stores and helped, say, fix it or fix the culture or fix one part of it. And then there's other people that have been builders. So let's dive into those leadership styles. What sets them apart? And firstly, let's dissect each and every style. So walk me through a fixer.
Fixer is your classic turnaround person. They love going into the burning building. So you think about a business that is in severe distress, that's where your fixer goes in. The distinction we make with leadership style is that the way a fixer is wired, they go into the burning building, they go into the failing company, and once that has been solved one way or the other, they need to do it again and again and again. Yeah. It's a bit of an adrenaline fix that they're going for. It's not the same kind of wiring as artist, builder, or strategist.
Yeah. And I was, during my career, I guess, a little bit of a fixer. I'd go into stores and their culture may be wrong or their results weren't where they needed to be. And that adrenaline and that kept you going. You just saw things differently and you put the company into shape. But give me a store that was performing well, for example, and I'm probably going to get a little bit bored with the mundanity of it. Do you see that within fixers?
The boredom factor is real. Yep. Once the fire's put out, you're kind of looking for the next one. So we typically see fixers move into the next fix-it role. Yeah. Otherwise, chaos could appear just because they need something to fix.
Sorry, Coach, what I was going to say is one of the leaders we interviewed, he said, and he had a portfolio of companies that he owned. He said, if I put a fixer into a company and it's not broken, he'll break it just so he can fix it. That's where boredom goes too far.
Yeah, that was going to be my question, because often you could see a fixer going in, fixing it, and then ultimately becoming the problem if they stay in that role for too long. Because, interesting. Tell me about an artist.
Artist.
Whether it's new product, service, technology, this leader, I think, really is kind of thinking outside the box. They could be starting something from scratch, or they could be reinventing something, rethinking something. But I think artist leaders are definitely essential for kind of forward progress. Companies get stagnant without an artist inside to kind of push that fresh thinking.
So, Robert, is this where we see innovations in a company? Does that sit within like that artist style leader?
Yes, the standout leader in the world today that everyone would think of as artist driven is Elon Musk.
Yeah,
and he's been quoted. If you hear him talk about what he likes and dislikes about leading, everything that he says is around engineering, innovation, product design. It is around the creation and the recreation. And it has nothing to do with the thing that strategists tend to be great at in terms of the administration of a company, the movement forward of a team. That's not Elon.
So, Olivia, what's the ideal environment, I guess, then for an artist?
You see a lot of artists either starting from scratch, you could think of it the entrepreneur, but ultimately they could be within a large organization too. Which, I think for an artist leader, if they aren't in an environment where they're able to express that creative side, they're not going to thrive.
Yeah. And I guess bureaucracy and red tape would be much of a hindrance to an artist.
It's as if the oxygen supply was being cut off.
Being sucked out of the room. Yeah. Okay. Awesome.
You would see a lot of, corporations, the more the more freewheeling, the more that, say, a chief marketing officer is given rein, you're looking at someone innovative. Because we're talking about the creation of anything from a tagline, a message, an ad campaign, to a new product, you know.
So then we look at the builder. So the builder is when a company needs new markets and big growth, we need to hire a builder. So once again, just walk me through the little bit of detail around the builder leader, and I'll start with you, Robert.
So builder, just so you know, we over the course of building InterumExecs, Olivia and I have been approached by about 7,000 executives from around the world. So if you were to ask most leaders, they love the label builder. Everyone wants to be the builder.
Yeah, that's still my ego, the world of good.
It's just, I build things. That's wonderful. And the wiring of all leaders includes elements of fixer, artist, builder, strategist. But when we say builder, there is a particular kind of wiring for these leaders that there could be a small team. There could be a product that somebody created. There could be a division of a company which is not yet hit its stride. And this is the person who loves building the team, the structure, the strategy. What they have, their mantra, it's market domination. That market could be a city. It could be a particular vertical. But what tends to happen with the builder is that once they reach scale, however that is defined, it's a little similar to a fixer getting bored or outliving their usefulness in a particular situation. What you tend to see with builders is that they will pass it off. After there's been an IPO, after all that growth has been achieved, they tend to pass it off, move on, because they need that next smaller project and team to go do it all over again.
So potentially an ideal environment would be maybe after, say, minimum viable product scale stage in a startup where they're taking the product to market and they're looking to get growth or fast stage growth.
Yes, there's a class of executives that will come in after company founders once funding has come in, and that is a classic example. And we focus on one leader of each style before generalizing in the book. Yeah. But the example we use is a particular leader who did exactly that. Yeah. Founders got a business to a certain point, and then he took it to the point of an IPO or a significant sale.
Okay, and then
he left and did it all over again.
and they continue to do that. I would imagine that's what drives them. Yep. That's their motivator. So, Olivia, the strategist is the last of the four styles that you've dissected. Walk me through what makes a strategist different to the other three.
Yeah, you tend to see strategists kind of operating at scale. You get into large organizations, there's more complexity, lots of different teams, pieces at play. So I think they really have an ability to kind of create short, long-term vision, turn it into executable plans. And I think portray that vision through the company so everyone knows, where they are on that playing field.
Yeah. Okay. So how do companies use, or how can companies use what you've developed here in developing the very best leadership teams or the leadership styles for their businesses?
Tony, it reminds me of a quote from one of the leaders we interviewed in the book. Very successful guy, and he's an investor and owns a bunch of companies. And when we described fixer, artist, builder, strategist, he said, I was invested in a company and it was in trouble. And we thought the CEO was the most remarkable person and he did wonders. He said, but now that I'm thinking of it, after he fixed all of the problems, he wasn't so great. And that would be the perfect example, which is why, the name, with books, you agonize over the name of it. I was like, what are we going to call this? And our editor said, this is so obvious. It's called Right Leader, Right Time. Yeah. If it had been a longer title, it would have been Right Leader, Right Time, Right Role, Right Place, Right Setting, Right Situation.
Yeah.
because no one is all things to all people.
And it really does go beyond title. It's focusing on what's the problem at hand. Where is the organization at? Do we need someone to fix the issues?
Yeah.
Do you need someone to kind of put the process systems in place? Really taking a step back to look at that, I think, helps an organization build more cohesive teams with complementary strengths. It really can lead to better results.
I'm sort of looking at it in two ways, and this just makes so much sense to me, and so I'm going to repeat that a number of times during the interview. This just makes sense to me, and I can see it like what Robert was just talking about, where the person that fixed the problem suddenly isn't as effective as what they used to be. And so from a company standpoint, that person's gained some brownie points, some gold stars for the work that they've done in fixing the problems. And that can then carry them through for a period of non-performance almost, or some staleness happening within the organization. And for an organization to be able to identify they're a fixer, we need them for this period of time, but then we need to look for them to move into another problem area. Would be a huge benefit, I would imagine, but also for the leader themselves. I would imagine if you're the fixer style, there is nothing worse than staying somewhere too long.
We talk a lot about kind of highest and best use.
Yeah.
So what are you completely energized by? And I think if you take a step back, look at your career, a lot of leaders can point to scenarios where they just felt completely energized. This was the right role for you. So versus kind of trying to force fit yourself into a role, saying I can do it all. I'm the jack of all trades.
Yeah.
I think the most effective leaders are in tune with this is or isn't the best scenario for me. And that's kind of what's driving their career decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. I worked with a leadership team going through a major change process in one of the businesses that I worked in. And we still keep in contact with the leadership. We've all gone our own separate ways, unfortunately, since then. But they still refer to that time because we were basically rebuilding a $50 million store at that particular time. And they refer to that time as the favorite time that they've ever worked somewhere. So would that be an indicator that I had a team of fixers with me? And then my next question, my lead on to that is, how do you determine your own style?
Well, I think part of what you're getting at is when everyone says it's favorite time, in fact, they were in their highest and best use. There was this sense that they were fulfilling a purpose. And that is what we're trying to get at.
Yeah.
The sad reality, though, this is not our statistic. I think it's Gallup organization. 90% of leaders are in the wrong role.
Yeah.
And our own anecdotal experience from thousands of executives is that the majority never achieve great success.
Yeah.
And part of the opposite, identifying what was successful, was that those people who do really have a lot of success, they have different traits than folks who try to do too much, that dilute themselves down.
Absolutely. So is there an assessment? Like we talk about DISC personality styles, and there's a myriad of other personality or leadership assessments out there. Is there an assessment that someone can do that can help them determine what style they are? We,
along with the launch of the book, we are launching an assessment tool called FAB's Leadership Assessment.
Gotcha.
FAB stands for Fixer, Artist, Builder, Strategist.
Yeah.
And it'll be up at it's a free assessment up at the site, rightleader.com.
Excellent. I'll make sure that we've got that on the show notes. So let's talk a little bit more, I guess, about just some general leadership aspects around, some of the learnings that you've had. Is there, so and once again, I'm now that those styles are in my head, I'm going to sort of try and think of people that I've worked with that are those styles. So one of the challenges that we often see in leaders is to have those conversations that need to happen. Whether it's a difficult performance conversation, whether it's a budgeting negotiation, whether it's a presentation to the board, some of those conversations are some of those things that sit in the pit of the stomach of leaders everywhere and really cause some angst and anxiety. What are some of the tips that in relation to those difficult conversations, and is there a style that's best suited, or is that just a skill that should be in each and every style?
Part of what we think, and at the moment this is not yet hard research, is you can't really know where you arrive when you're at, say, the age of 22. Mm-hmm. It's just not possible. You need to be on the journey. You need to be on the road. Coach Curl, I don't know for you, if you knew when you were 22, would we be on this podcast? For most successful leaders, there's a journey that it makes sense, more and more sense, the further you go.
Yeah.
And it crystallizes and it takes a direction. Mm. You determine that direction, but very hard to tell early on. Much more sense making of it the further you go.
Yeah.
And for people who are successful, it's a bit of a Zen kind of thing, arriving and not arrived. Mm. You arrive at this point where you just have this feeling you're in your highest and best use, or that most of the time you are really purpose driven. Part of this, you use a phrase on your podcast about accountability. That is it. Mm. You use a phrase, on one of your podcasts, I heard you say, heeding the call. You heed the call. Mm. That's highest and best use in our book. I don't know, Olivia, what do you think?
Yeah, we kind of point to these core principles of Fab's leadership. And, to Bob's point, you're playing to your highest and best use. Mm. You're not afraid to, turn down an opportunity that might not be the best fit.
Yeah.
Also just geared towards collaboration, bringing yourself around complementary skill sets and not seeing it as some weakness that maybe you can't step into every single role under the sun.
Yeah.
And, ultimately accountability, taking responsibility for your actions and not being afraid to make kind of bold moves.
Mm. So just, I guess my final question around the book that you've written and your particular expertise. I've coined a phrase called corporate haze, and we get caught up in this haze in organizations. It could be a constant restructure. It could be constant fear of a constant restructure. And we just have like this haze that turns people into like bodies that show up every day and without a clear visionary aspect of what it is that they're doing. We just get an organization, whether it's a bureaucratic organization, a corporate organization, that gets so caught up in not doing anything wrong because they're fearful of what's going to happen next because of this instability, this haze that people feel within those organizations. How can companies, how can companies work to ensure that they don't have the internal instability or the corporate haze that I sort of talk to? And is there a best style? Is that the work of a strategist that ensures that doesn't exist?
Well, from a point of view of leadership style, yes. We live in a world that is so much more project driven.
Yeah.
It's not like what it used to be. People don't stay in corporations their entire careers anymore. And that just is what it is. It's the way the world is. And so we have seen, and we have a particular point of view on leadership that pretty much acknowledges no one or very few people are going to be just within one organization. Yeah. The other side of this, though, speaks, Coach Curl, to what you do, which is now more than ever, organizations need coaches. They need outside resources that bring in a fresh perspective I'd say it's a little bit similar. I know you're expert in DISC. Well, we hope Fab's leadership style gets some validity. We hope the book helps. Those are tools that do not replace bright people coming into organizations to make sure they don't stagnate.
Yeah.
They're not nice to have. They're must have.
Yeah. Fully agree there. And I think if organizations can truly work with that framework and choose the right leader, the right style at the right time, hence the name of your book, Right Leader, Right Time, I think would be helping that process where people are aligned at the right time for the right reasons. So let's just walk through just a couple of things. Who's been the inspiration for you in your journey, Olivia?
That's a good question. I think we are in a very unique position in that we get to speak to pretty incredible leaders every day.
Yeah.
So, for me, in this kind of career journey of building InterumExecs, there have been certain leaders that have been with us even in the early days. Execs even featured in the book, Dick Lindenmuth, who we deployed into a family-owned manufacturing firm. Michelle Barnes, who helped lead Tourette Association of America.
Yeah.
Those are execs that, not only did we get to kind of see lead in action, but they've been cheerleaders for us, sources of advice, inspiration. So feel pretty grateful, I'd say, that we get that type of input every day.
Yeah. I certainly understand that. Part of the joy that I get out of doing this podcast is I get to speak with inspirational people on a weekly basis, and I just absolutely love it. Robert, yourself, who's inspired you in your journey?
Oh my gosh, this is such a hard question because I've had such wonderful mentors and inspirations, including my business partner, Olivia Wagner. One of the leaders we interviewed a while back, and we cited him in this book, is a guy named Dane Miller. He essentially is the founder of the entire field of making artificial hips and knees.
Wow.
He's kind of the guy. And when he started way back, he had launched a company called Biomed. It became huge.
Yeah.
The industry, when it was first starting out, figuring out how do you make an artificial hip or knee, they thought that stainless steel was the best material for the human body.
Yeah.
And he said, you're all wrong. It's going to corrode. And he was saying, you got to use titanium. And everyone thought he was crazy. Biomed had launched in a small town in Indiana. And they had what he called the perfect storm, a series of tornadoes that knocked out the power in the plant. And he was bored, and he realized the power was going to be out a week. And so he called a friend who was a surgeon, and he said, I'm coming over. I want you to implant a piece of titanium into my arm. And the surgeon friend said, you're nuts, and I'm not doing this. And he said, you are. And he came over, and he put the titanium in, and he left it in his arm for 10 years. And the reason is he was trying to prove a point, that it was safe, it was more efficacious, and he was right. And now around the world, there's a huge industry around joint replacement. It's all titanium.
Yeah.
Why? Because of Dane Miller. And when he told me that story and he pointed to his arm, I just thought, this is incredible. Everybody talks about how committed they are and what links they'll go to serve their customers or to change the world. But really?
Yeah.
But here Dane did this, and I just thought, this is unbelievable.
10 years to prove a point. So that's an amazing story. I could make a joke about marriage with that, but I won't. Because I think some people out there
want to stay married.
Yeah, some people out there may still be trying to prove their point from 10 years ago in their partnerships and relationships. So, but that's an incredible story, and it really showcases commitment, dedication, and I suppose a real dogmatic approach to knowing that this was the best way, or at least believing it was the best way, and having to be having to be proved that it was the best way. What a great story. Let's talk about failure, because which is a great lead-in, because that could have been a big failure for Dan, Robert. So how do you describe your relationship with failure?
Oh, I have a quite intimate relationship with failure. My first company, I launched the first magazine anywhere in the world that covered online services. I was 26 when I did it, and I went bust. The magazine went bankrupt by the time I was age 28. That was not a lot of fun.
No. And Olivia?
It's painful, not exactly comfortable. I guess we know it all too well. I think looking back on building InterumExecs, early on in the business, we pretty much scrapped the first 2 iterations, which was not an easy move to make. But ultimately, it's what brought us to where we are today, where we're, matching leaders with companies. I don't know that we could have done that in day one. So, the biggest learnings seem to come from those painful moments.
And once again, that's so true. It's where we sit today is usually a journey of our flaws and failures as opposed to our successes and our wins. Because we're learning along the way and adjusting and amending. Well, hopefully people are adjusting and amending. Some people, I think, can also be a little bit dogmatic, believing their way may be the best way, when in fact they continue to fail and then look outside and blame others. So final questions, guys. Olivia, what's the vision that you see ahead for both InterumExecs and I suppose what you want to achieve, the impact that you have for the book?
Yeah, I think, we want to get more people in the right roles. We've seen over and over again the role that leadership can play for good and bad, but it really does have a ripple effect through an organization. So knowing that we're helping people get into roles that are their highest and best use, and just helping a wide variety of companies, I think we just want to be doing more of that.
Excellent. Robert, how can people connect with you?
How to connect with us? Email is probably the easiest, going to InterumExecs.com. When the book launches in 14 days, then rightleader.com goes live as well. And happy to talk with folks. We love meeting people. We love meeting leaders on their journey.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to doing the FABS assessment just quietly. So you'll see my email address no doubt come up through that. So that'll be very
Coach Curl, just so you know, you're going to be an early guinea pig. So please be patient.
Okay, no worries. Always happy to be a guinea pig. Robert and Olivia, it's been an absolute pleasure having you today on the Today's Leader. Thank you so much for investing in Today's Leaders.
Thanks so much
Thanks so much, Coach Curl. Appreciate it.
I mentioned a number of times during the show how this model just makes sense. It just resonates with me. And from first-hand experience or first-hand observation, I can personally identify each and every style in this framework. And leaders that have had that particular style at certain stages of their career or in the environment. Even myself, I was able to identify different styles that I've had at different times in my career. And the style that I was ultimately most successful at was all discovered during this particular conversation. The compelling thing is that it also explains why leaders will often stumble or stall and even fail, even though that they may have had great success at other times and other environments. Now, I wish Olivia and Robert all the very best with this book. And I really hope it's embraced by leaders and organisations to help organisations and businesses everywhere perform stronger and have the best leaders in the best possible roles at the best possible times. Because to me, that just makes sense. You want the right person, the right leader at the right time. So let's just walk through those styles again. When a company is in chaos or decline, it's time to call in the fixer. When a company needs a creative jolt to get them out of stagnation or that sense of status quo, let's turn to an artist. When a company needs new markets and big growth, hire a builder. And finally, when a company reaches complexity and scale, we need to have the strategists. Get a copy of the book. Grab your assessment that is available on their website. Find out what style you are and find out how you best serve as a leader. Once again, thank you to Robert and Olivia for investing in today's leaders, and of course all their links are in the show notes. If you're looking to build better leadership skills, check out the Today's Leader website at todaysleader.com.au. We really are driving a leadership revolution to build tomorrow's best leaders today. Today's Leader is a collective, the mindset to make a difference, the ability to create an impact. Think and Grow Business hosts our Today's Leader Mastermind. Think and Grow Business, where we focus on personal, professional, and business growth. Book your free 30-minute discovery call right from the homepage at thinkandgrowbusiness.com.au. Don't forget, wherever you are standing stronger, braver, and wiser. Don't forget the golden rule. Don't be an arsehole. I'll see you all again next week. Bye for now.